My brother-in-law kept helping while my husband worked, then I caught him on tape confessing his love and trying to kiss me holding my baby. My husband Terry and I have been married for 3 years, and we've got a baby girl, Maria. She just turned 6 months old. Things were going fine until Terry's younger brother Ryan, who's 26, started coming over way too often. And by often, I mean nearly every other day for the past 2 months. Here's the weird part, he only shows up when Terry's not home. Terry works in construction, so he's out the door by 6 in the morning and doesn't usually get back until about 5:30 in the evening. Ryan? He times his visits perfectly, always swinging by after Terry leaves and heading out before he gets back. It's like clockwork. Almost every morning around 7 a.m., Ryan will text me something like, "Need help with anything today? Or want some company while Terry's gone?" At first, I thought it was sweet. I figured maybe he was just being supportive, trying to help his brother's wife with the baby and all. But lately, I've started to feel like there's more to it than that. He never shows up empty-handed. He always brings these expensive coffees, like he's trying to impress me or something, and then he'll park himself on our couch for hours, just chatting about whatever's on his mind. Usually, it's how bored he is at his insurance job, or how he envies the life Terry and I have. He'll slip in comments like, "Terry's lucky to have you," or "You're such a great mom and wife." At first, it felt like harmless flattery. Now, it's starting to feel calculated. Last week, he brought me flowers just because, he said. Told me I looked tired and thought they might cheer me up. I told Terry about it later, expecting him to at least raise an eyebrow. But he just laughed and said, "That's Ryan for you. Always been thoughtful." But here's the thing, Ryan acts completely different depending on who's around. When Terry's home, Ryan barely acknowledges me. He'll sit with him and watch TV or help out in the garage. They'll talk about trucks, football, whatever. But when it's just me and the baby, he gets real chatty. Too chatty. And overly helpful. He'll hover around me in the kitchen, standing just a little too close while I'm cooking, peeking over my shoulder. Or when I'm folding laundry, he'll insist on helping, and there's always that awkward hand touch when we both reach for the same thing. It's like he's constantly looking for excuses to be physically near me. A couple of weeks ago, Maria was crying nonstop, and I was at my limit. I hadn't slept, I hadn't showered, I was just completely drained. Ryan offered to hold her so I could take a quick shower, and I was so desperate I said yes. But the whole time I was in there, I couldn't relax. I had this tight feeling in my chest, like something wasn't right. When I came out, he was sitting in the nursery, rocking her gently, singing to her. He looked up at me and said, "You look beautiful with your hair wet," and added that Terry was the luckiest man alive. I froze. I grabbed Maria and mumbled something about needing to feed her just to get out of there. Then yesterday happened, and it was the worst one yet. Ryan showed up at 8 in the morning with pastries from the bakery and said he'd taken the whole day off work just to help me out. I told him I didn't need help, but he waved it off and came in anyway. He trailed behind me everywhere I went, kitchen, laundry room, even the nursery. At one point, I was changing Maria's diaper, and I noticed he was standing in the doorway, watching me. He started making comments again, saying I looked like such a natural mom, how motherhood suited me. I can't explain it, but it made my skin crawl. Then he asked if he could take a picture of me holding Maria. Said we looked so peaceful and that it would be a nice surprise for Terry. I told him no. But he wouldn't drop it, kept pushing and insisting. I finally had to raise my voice and tell him to knock it off. Only then did he back off. He got all quiet and sulky after that and left a few hours later. But before he walked out, he said he was just trying to be a good brother and didn't understand why I was being so cold to him. When Terry got home, I tried to explain everything. I told him Ryan's been acting off, only showing up when he's gone, saying things that make me uncomfortable. But Terry just brushed it off. He said Ryan's been awkward around people his whole life and that I was probably overthinking things. He told me I should be grateful Ryan cares enough to check in and that a lot of women would love to have a brother-in-law that involved. I couldn't believe it. It felt like no matter what I said, Terry wasn't hearing me. Then this morning, Ryan texted again asking if he could come over. And I just snapped. I told him flat out that he needed to stop coming by when Terry's not here. I told him it made me uncomfortable and if he wanted to visit, he should wait until Terry was home. He didn't take that well. He immediately called me, yelling, said I was being ridiculous, that I was paranoid, and that he'd never done anything wrong. He accused me of being hormonal because I just had a baby, and said I was blowing everything out of proportion. Then he told me I was damaging his relationship with Terry and hung up. About 20 minutes later, Terry called from work. Apparently Ryan had already called him, upset and crying. Terry asked what I said to make Ryan so hurt. He told me I needed to apologize for accusing Ryan of something he didn't do. Said Ryan had always been kind and helpful and that I should be thankful someone was willing to look after me and Maria while he's not around. Terry warned me not to make this into a big family issue. He said I should call Ryan and make peace. I was so frustrated, I just hung up the phone. Now Terry's mom is calling me. Ryan apparently called her too, crying about how I was treating him. She keeps asking why I'm being so mean to someone who's just trying to be a good uncle. I haven't answered. I don't even know what to say. Everyone's acting like I'm being dramatic, like I'm imagining things. But I know what I've felt. I know how Ryan's been acting. And deep down, I trust my gut. So now I'm left wondering, am I really the one in the wrong for setting a boundary? Or is it okay to feel this way when someone's behavior starts crossing invisible lines? Update 1. It's only been a week since I told Ryan not to come by when Terry's not around, and things have spiraled out of control. Terry came home from work that same day already furious. Ryan had apparently called him several times during lunch, crying and making a scene. Terry said his co-workers overheard the calls and started asking questions. Now they're gossiping about me, wondering why I won't let Ryan visit his niece. Terry was embarrassed. That night, he sat me down and told me to lay it all out, what exactly Ryan did that made me so uncomfortable. So I did. I tried explaining all the little things, how Ryan always shows up when Terry's not home, how he says unsettling things, how he follows me around the house and pushes boundaries. But Terry wasn't hearing any of it. He kept interrupting, saying, "That's not that bad," or "You're blowing this out of proportion." He said Ryan's just socially awkward and doesn't always know how to talk to women, but that doesn't make him a creep. He told me Ryan's ex broke up with him because he was too clingy and needy, and now he's depressed and just trying to feel close to someone. He said I was making him feel like a stranger in his own brother's house. And once again, I was made to feel like the problem for drawing a line that no one else seems to think should exist. Terry said something the other night that absolutely pushed me over the edge. He looked at me and said, "Maybe you're just exhausted from taking care of Maria. New moms sometimes see threats where there aren't any. Maybe you should talk to your doctor about postpartum anxiety." I was stunned. I told him I wasn't imagining things, and I certainly wasn't anxious. I was uncomfortable for very real reasons. My gut had been telling me something about Ryan wasn't right. But instead of taking me seriously, Terry just shook his head and acted like I was being unreasonable. Like my feelings didn't count. The next day, I got a call from his mom, Susan, and she was already fired up before I even answered. She launched into a full-blown lecture, telling me Ryan's always been a sensitive boy and that he's been going through a tough time lately. She said I should be more compassionate and stop pushing him away. According to her, Ryan had shown up at her place crying, saying he didn't understand why I hated him or what he'd done wrong. Susan demanded I apologize to him and fix things. And then she got personal. She said maybe the problem is that I don't know how real families work, because my parents live across the country and I don't have any siblings. She told me that just because I wasn't raised around close-knit family dynamics doesn't mean I get to wreck theirs. She actually said, if you keep acting like this, you're going to destroy Terry's relationship with his brother, and that would be unforgivable. Family comes first. I tried to stay calm. I told her I wasn't trying to ruin anything, I just didn't feel comfortable with how Ryan had been behaving, and I needed to set some boundaries in my own home. But she cut me off mid-sentence and said I was being overdramatic and way too sensitive. Then she hit me with this: I raised my sons to be kind and respectful. You should be ashamed for assuming the worst about Ryan. All he's ever tried to do is be nice. Later that same day, Terry's dad called too. He wasn't as aggressive as Susan, but the message was basically the same: I needed to be more understanding. He said Ryan's always been the baby of the family, and maybe he just didn't realize how his actions might come across. His advice? Instead of shutting Ryan out, I should sit down and talk to him, give him a chance to explain. What made it worse, so much worse, was that Terry completely took their side. Now he's treating me like I'm the one causing problems. He said I'm being stuck up, ungrateful, and controlling. He told me I don't get to dictate who he sees or who's allowed in our home. This is my house too, he said. Ryan's my brother. If you won't work things out with him, I'll start inviting him over whether you like it or not. He told me I was making something out of nothing. That I was being paranoid. That he was done dealing with this drama I created for no reason. Meanwhile, Ryan's been blowing up my phone. Every single day. He keeps asking when he can come back. Says he misses spending time with Maria and wishes things could just go back to how they were. He's apologized, not for anything specific, just a vague "sorry if I made you uncomfortable," followed by "I still don't know what I did wrong." He keeps ending his messages with things like, "Family shouldn't hold grudges," and "I don't want this to come between us." The worst part? I feel completely alone in this. Terry barely speaks to me now, and when he does, it's just to remind me that I need to apologize. His entire family acts like I'm the villain, like I'm cruel for not wanting Ryan around when I'm home alone with our baby. But deep down, I know I'm not crazy. My instincts have been screaming that something's off with Ryan. And no matter how hard they try to convince me I'm imagining it, I know I'm not. Update 2. Yesterday, something happened. Something that confirmed every instinct I've had from the very beginning. And now, I don't know what to do because everyone already thinks I'm irrational. And this time, I have real proof. But I'm terrified of what happens next, especially when I tell Terry. After all the pressure, days of being told I was the one ruining things, I gave in. I agreed to let Ryan come over. Terry made it clear that if I didn't make peace, he'd just start inviting Ryan himself, with or without my approval. I was tired of fighting. I didn't want to be the bad guy anymore. Terry promised Ryan would be more aware of how he comes across. That he was sorry. That I should give him one more chance. So yesterday, like clockwork, Terry left for work at 6 a.m. Around 8:30, Ryan texted asking if he could stop by to apologize in person and prove he could be normal. I didn't want to see him, I still didn't trust him, but I knew saying no would just blow things up again. So I said fine, but only for an hour. That was the deal. He showed up at 9 sharp. Of course, he brought his usual coffee and muffins, like nothing had happened. At first, he was normal. More normal than usual. He kept a bit of distance. Talked about the weather. Asked about Maria's sleep schedule. Sat across the room from me while I folded laundry and Maria napped in the other room. He even brought up how he was thinking about leaving his job because insurance was boring. Nothing weird. No strange comments. I started thinking, maybe I'd been too harsh. Maybe he really had just been socially awkward before. Then Maria woke up. I went to get her and came back holding her in my arms. The second I walked into the living room, everything shifted. That look in Ryan's eyes came back. The one I'd seen before. The one that made my stomach twist. He started saying how beautiful she was. How perfect she looked. Then he said how lucky Terry was, how lucky he was to have us. Not just Maria. Us. He said he wished he had something like this. I was standing by the window, trying to soothe her. Ryan got up and walked over. I told him I had it handled. He ignored that. He stepped closer and reached out, touched Maria's cheek, and when his hand brushed mine, he didn't pull away. He just stood there. Too close. Way too close. Then he said I smelled good. He said Terry didn't know how lucky he was. That I deserved someone who truly saw me. Noticed me. Appreciated me. Someone who understood all the little things I do every day. I backed up, told him to give me some space. He didn't. He kept going. He said he's always thought I was amazing. That he's wished things were different. I tried to walk away, but he reached out and gently grabbed my arm. Not aggressive, just firm enough to stop me. He said he had something to tell me. Something he'd been holding in for a long time. Then he looked me in the eye and said it. He said he knows it's wrong, but he can't help how he feels. That every time he sees me with Maria, all he can think about is how much he wishes he was the one coming home to us every night. Not Terry. I told Ryan, very firmly, that he needed to leave right now. What he was saying was completely out of line. But instead of backing off, he looked at me and said he could tell I felt something too, based on how I supposedly looked at him sometimes. He said I didn't seem happy in my marriage, and that it was obvious Terry didn't pay enough attention to me. At that point, I was holding Maria tighter, trying to edge my way toward the front door, but Ryan stepped in front of me and blocked the path. He said he just needed me to hear him out. He kept talking, rambling, really, about how he's been in love with me ever since the day Terry first introduced us. How he always wondered what might have happened if he had met me before Terry did. He said he thinks about me constantly, at work, at home, at night when he's trying to sleep. I started to panic. He was getting emotional, his energy more intense with every word, and I realized I needed proof in case this turned into a he said, she said situation. So I quietly pulled my phone out of my pocket, opened the voice recorder, and hit record without him noticing. All while he kept pouring his heart out, saying we could be happy together if I just gave him a chance. That Terry takes me for granted, but he would treat me like a queen. That he could be a better father to Maria than Terry ever would be. And then he said something that made my stomach drop. He admitted that he'd only been coming over while Terry was at work so he could spend time with me alone. That every coffee, every bouquet of flowers, every time he helped out around the house, it was all his way of showing me how much he cared. He said he really thought I was starting to warm up to him, that maybe I was beginning to see him as more than just Terry's little brother. I told him again louder this time that he needed to leave immediately. That if he didn't walk out, I was calling the police and Terry. But Ryan didn't move. He said he wasn't done, that I had to understand how deep his feelings ran because if he didn't say it now, he never would. I was backed against the wall, holding my daughter, completely terrified. And then he said he's been dreaming about kissing me for years. That he thinks about it all the time. And before I could react, he reached out and put his hands on my face and tried to kiss me. I shoved him away with my free hand as hard as I could and yelled that I was calling the police if he didn't leave right that second. That finally snapped him out of it. He backed off, clearly realizing how far he had just gone. He started apologizing immediately, saying he didn't mean to scare me, that he got carried away because of how strong his feelings were. He insisted he would never hurt me or Maria. He just kept saying I'm sorry over and over again, claiming he lost control because he'd been holding all of this in for so long that he snapped. He begged me not to tell Terry, said it would destroy their relationship forever. Promised me it would never happen again. That he'd stay away if that's what I wanted. I told him to get the hell out of my house and that I was going to tell Terry, no matter what. He started crying. Told me I was going to ruin his life. That Terry would never forgive him. That their parents would disown him. He said he knew he'd messed up, but he just couldn't help it because he loved me. And he really thought maybe I had started to feel something too. After he finally left, I locked every door, every window. Then I sat on the floor of Maria's nursery, holding her while I sobbed. I was still shaking, still trying to process what had just happened. All I could think was how much worse it could have been. What if I hadn't been holding Maria? What if Ryan hadn't backed off? The recording on my phone captured everything, his confession, his feelings, his intentions, even the moment he tried to kiss me. It was all there. I finally had proof that I wasn't overreacting. That I hadn't imagined it. That Ryan's behavior had never been just innocent awkwardness. But despite that, I was terrified to tell Terry. I didn't know if he'd believe me even with a recording. I was scared he'd somehow find a way to blame me. Say I led Ryan on. Say I should have stopped it earlier. I didn't know what this was going to do to his relationship with his family. Would he stand by me? Or would he protect his brother? Even with everything I had recorded, I was scared of being doubted again. Final update. I finally told Terry. And he believed me. It was Saturday morning. He didn't have work, and Maria was napping. I waited until the house was quiet and sat him down at the kitchen table. I told him I needed to talk, and that it was serious. He saw the look on my face and immediately asked if someone had died or if something was wrong with Maria. I said no, but that what I was about to tell him was going to change everything between us and his family. I reminded him of all the times I said Ryan made me uncomfortable. All the times I tried to set boundaries and got brushed off. I told him how no one believed me. How his whole family called me paranoid. Terry started to interrupt to say we didn't need to dig that all up again, but I stopped him. I told him, you need to hear everything before you say a word. Then I told him what happened when Ryan came over Thursday. His entire expression changed. He asked what Ryan had done. I pulled out my phone and told him I had something he needed to hear. I played the recording from the beginning, Ryan's voice, clear as day, saying he'd loved me for years, wished he'd met me first, that he couldn't stop thinking about me. Terry went pale. His hands started to shake. When Ryan said he'd been coming over alone to see if I felt the same, Terry stood up and started pacing. By the time the audio got to the part where Ryan talked about kissing me and you could hear me pushing him away and telling him to stop, Terry snapped. He punched the wall so hard he cracked the drywall. Then he started yelling that he was going to kill his brother. He kept pacing and muttering, how could he do this? I defended him. He tried to assault my wife, in our house, with my baby right there. Then he looked at me, eyes filled with rage and regret, and said, I'm so sorry I didn't believe you. Right there, he grabbed his phone and called Ryan. The second Ryan picked up, Terry exploded. Screaming at him, calling him a sick freak, telling him he never wanted to see or hear from him again. Ryan tried to talk, tried to explain, but Terry wasn't having it. He told him he heard the recording, knew exactly what he said, and that there was no excuse, no justification. Terry said Ryan was dead to him. That if he ever came near me or Maria again, he'd regret it. That what he did was unforgivable. Then Terry hung up and chucked his phone across the room. After he cooled down a bit, he wrapped his arms around me and apologized over and over. Said he hated himself for not listening sooner. For letting me feel unsafe. For making me doubt myself while I was just trying to protect our family. He asked if Ryan had ever done anything else, inappropriate comments, touching, anything. So I told him. About the hand brushes. The hovering. The subtle flirtation. The way he'd always stood too close. Terry got angry all over again. He said he couldn't believe he'd been so blind. Then his phone rang. It was his mom, Susan. He picked up and immediately told her what Ryan did. That he had proof. That Ryan admitted everything. I could hear her crying through the phone, trying to defend Ryan. saying maybe he was sick, maybe he needed help, that we shouldn't abandon him. Terry cut her off. He told her that Ryan chose to do what he did, and that he didn't care what his excuse was. He said if anyone in the family tried to defend Ryan or pressure us to forgive him, they'd be cut off too. Then he hung up. All weekend, Terry ignored every call and text from his dad and sister. He told me he didn't want to hear from any of them unless they were calling to apologize for choosing Ryan over me, for treating me like I was the problem. Terry was embarrassed, angry, and deeply ashamed that it took proof for him to finally take my side. Yesterday, he changed all the locks on our doors. He installed a security camera by the front door and told the neighbor to call the police immediately if she saw Ryan near the house. He told me he's not taking any chances with our safety, that Ryan forfeited his right to be part of our lives the second he crossed that line. For the first time in weeks, I feel like I can breathe again. Terry believes me. He's protecting me. He's making it right. He still apologizes, telling me he's sorry for doubting me, for making me carry this alone for so long. I told him what matters now is that he knows the truth, and he's standing by me. We haven't heard from Ryan since. But if he ever tries to show up or contact me, Terry says he'll call the police immediately and file a restraining order. I feel lighter now, like a weight's been lifted. I don't have to question myself anymore. I don't have to pretend his behavior was just awkward. It wasn't, and now everyone knows. I'm still trying to process everything that's happened, and I think, after all this, I'll probably need to talk to someone. Someone besides Reddit. But for now, I'm safe. Maria's safe. And that's what matters.